welcome to this episode 190 of Frame and Reference. You're about to drop into a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest, Stephan Pehrsson, BSC, DP of Black Mirror. Enjoy. You know what's funny is I've interviewed a bunch of BSC members. The funniest one was Catherine Goldschmidt, because I was like, wait a minute, you're one of us. How'd you get over there?
That's
now she's
American.
in the ASC, but
yeah.
But
she's done both out. It's always kick off, and I'm Danish, so I did film school in London and BSC, because all my work's been in the UK. It made sense to become BSC. Yeah. But there's also a Danish. You can be DFF as well, Danish film photographer or something. Anyway, forening. It's DFS. That's the Danish one. I'm not part of that one yet. Let's see.
They'll get you. But the reason I brought it up was because every single BSC member, I'm always like, all right, where is it? Where is it? There's Doctor Who. Nailed it. And
yeah. It's exactly. It's a rite of passage. You have to do it. You have to. It's one of the things. It's.
Well, and it's like in New York. If you're a New York-based DP, if you haven't shot Law and Order, you haven't made it yet.
And that's what you've been doing, You
have the distinction of shooting probably some of my favorite of the Smith era.
Fantastic!
Yeah, the Oricum time line, and then the astronaut. I thought were not only some of the best looking episodes up until that point.
The
Smith era brought in a whole new level of production. But just storyline wise, I thought they were incredible.
Yeah. No, they were good. I think there was something. I think Toby, who's my good friend and who also did these Black Mirror episodes, he's got sort of a knack. He's got sort of some kind of, natural instinct to him that just, the adventure and that kind of storytelling just bounces off him. It just comes out of him. He can't stop it. And I've just been lucky to sort of be part of that and hang on to his coattails, and do something exciting with him.
So he did those episodes too of Doctor Who then?
Yeah. So we're all friends. We were way back. We did film school together.
Oh, cool.
So I came over, did film school 2001, and then met Toby. Then we did some horrible short films back there that nobody liked. But then we sort of carry on our professional relationship and private friendship after that, and sort of maybe every other or every third project, we sort of end up sort of joining up and doing something together again, and that's been brilliant. So sort of dotted around the career.
Yeah,
it's been great.
That's the big it's who you know thing, right? Whenever people talk.
Oh, absolutely. But it's a who you know exactly, which is great because people, but also I think we always, apart from film school, everything we've done together we sort of been able to elevate each other, sort of help each other. So like, no, do this, do that. And there's just that little thing that goes with it, so it's always great when we get back together and do another thing.
Yeah. What, about Doctor Who, I'm always fascinated, especially with the Smith era, coming from the sort of traditional BBC look of the time into that more cinematic look. Were you sort of privy to some of those maybe conversations or what the BBC was for at that time?
But the thing is, I was watching Doctor Who, and watched the David Tennant era, and it just made me so angry. Because I just thought this could look so good, it would be so easy. Why don't it make it look good? Why is it lit so bad? And so I just couldn't wait. I just knew if I ever got the opportunity, I was just gonna make it so much better. It was, I was just itching for the chance. That luckily that series they already gone to 35mm cameras. Or 35mm lenses. It was all digital, of course, but the series before, it's all been digibeta, which is a horrible format, and they shot it on ENG style cameras, with those sort of zoom lenses that sit on the front. I mean, it couldn't be worse. It just looked like, it's how you shoot a football match. Those are the cameras that they were using.
Kind of stuff.
exactly, yeah, the cheapest, not cheapest, but Digibeta was sort of industry standard for a lot of dramas, but it was just not very good. And then they sort of moved on to 35 mil. I think it was called the Sony F35 at the
Oh
time,
yeah,
which
yeah.
we now shot with 35 mil lenses, and that helped. Suddenly you got that bigger depth of field. The lens, everything sort of warped and looked nicer. The colors, the what's called suddenly it was a log a log curve, so you had all the so much more information to grade with. That was the other thing I kept sort of seeing in the early ones was everything would be either crushed black or completely overblown white. It was just all out there, so everything was just it looked so video-y. That was sort of my the feeling. So I was just very pleased to get in there and just hold it in and go, no, 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 we're making adventure, we're making Indiana Jones, we're making Harry Potter, just all those things. That's, we were just trying to, our ambitions were high. And I think we sort of, because we did like five in a row. We did Pandora Opens, Big Bang, Christmas special with Michael Gambon, and then the two American ones straight after. And then that was sort of our 5 episode era of Doctor Who. But they were shot sort of at different times, but they ended up going out sort of almost like a 5 episode block.
Yeah. Well, and that the other thing, because I've spoken to some of the DPs from the older shows, and they similar stuff where they're like, "Wow, we had what we had." And the other thing I noticed too is they would even though it was the early 2000s. Well, I guess the early 2000s was still like DV.
Yeah,
it was thing in town, but they were still using some of that older film sensibility when it came to like diffusion and stuff, which would make these hot backlights just like nuclear.
Yeah.
They would just
I know.
everywhere. And
it was actually my old tutor from film school, a guy called Ernie Vince. Did you speak to Ernie?
No.
I think no. Well, he sadly passed away last year, so he's not with us anymore. But he did a lot of those stuff. He did the first season of what's it called, Christopher Eccleston's, and then I think from David Tennant, he did every other episode. But I sort of found his lighting incredibly lazy. It was just even that, and I sort of knew him from film school as well, so I just went, I can see, with him and me, he was teaching us film school, and anything he said, I just thought the opposite. I always went, you don't know what you're doing. Right. But he was great for, obviously he was a fantastic DP in the 60s, 70s, 80s, did some Merchant Ivory films, and, lots of beautiful, great stuff. But I think he sort of, he didn't understand video. He didn't understand the subtlety, and and you had to be a little bit more. I think he was just used to film grade. You could just do whatever you want and blow things out, and somehow film retains it and makes it look good. But video, you just have to be so careful, especially those days. If you're not careful, it fights against you. So he wasn't a subtle man with that kind of stuff.
Well, and also just the use of color too, right? Like everything had 15 gels on it. It seemed like.
No, exactly. No, that's the thing. It was overlaid exactly. It'd be red light and then blue light on the same side and then green from the back. And then, and it's like, what are you doing? You just turned everything on. That was the thing. Getting sort of lazy. You just didn't care. Oh, we need another light. Okay, just bring it in from that side. But, we would care like, no, it's coming from the left. And, the key lights from the right. And, we just tried to, just make it a little bit more modeled, and just how it looks in the films. That was all.
Yeah. Well, and
so I was so pleased I got the opportunity. That was,
yeah. Well, and the now it's kind of charming to, it's seeing how, because I feel like when it came back out, everyone, when they rebooted it and stuff, there was probably a little bit of like, oh, all right, well, let's see how this goes. And then it ended up off again.
I think some of it, obviously the production value has just gone up like 10 times, but I don't know whether it's been as big a hit as they hoped it would be. There was something around that sort of that David Tennant, Matt Smith era where it was just really blowing up everywhere. Really people had really sort of taken notice. But I feel like it's died off, and I'm not sure whether they're gonna carry on. Feels like series 2 might be the end of it with Shooty, but let's see. Yeah. But it's never gonna be over. Then they'll like lie dormant for a few years, and then someone else will pick it up.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of with Shooty and with what's her name, great actress who played 15. Anyway.
Jodie Whittaker.
Jodie Whittaker. Yeah, I think, fantastic actress, and then just all the scripts kind of came in, and it was just like,
No, I know. He just one guy. I mean, the thing is that writer, he did write some great scripts for the Matt Smith era. I did one of them. I think it was Dinosaurs on a Spaceship,
right,
which I lit, and it was exciting. It had all the right things. It was silly and funny and all that stuff. And I think after he'd done that, and then he did Broadchurch, which was a massive hit as well. It was felt, Chris Chibnall, he's going to be amazing. He's going to run this show beautifully. But I think he'd already used up all his ideas. He just wasn't ready for that show. Where Stephen Moffat and Russell T Davies, obviously, they've been dreaming about this since they were tiny boys, and they had stories, galore in their sleeves.
I remember, I mean, obviously I haven't seen the episodes in a while, but I remember the American episodes, which I thought was fantastic. I was like, we're coming here. But like outside that diner with the astronaut and stuff, you had lit that in such a I don't want to say extreme like that, but it was just very intense. Like I wasn't used to seeing. It's like the opening of that. I think it's like the fourth or fifth Harry Potter has this very crispy HDR kind of look that I always thought was very interesting and cool.
I think outside the diner was actually a green screen. There was so I don't know. So I didn't actually light it. They just put it in afterwards. It was one of those things where we could only have a week of shooting in America, so we had to be very specific about what scene we wanted to shoot in America. And a diner, we sort of felt like, guess you could shoot that in America, but it felt like from production's point of view, felt like that's a waste, because we're going to an excellent diner right here in Cardiff. Why don't we just shoot that one? But it meant that every other shot was sort of looking onto the green screen, and probably ended up costing more than giving us one more shooting day in America. But those are sometimes you don't necessarily make the right call. The diner looked great. I mean, I was really pleased with that beach. But it was this crazy idea. But we were told there was this thing with Stephen Moffat was in his era where he was sort of, still sort of piecing it together and what's the right story. He pitched us a story. It's going to be all about NASA. It's going to be all about Houston, and it's all going to be like the space journey, which it was, And then so we sort of sent a guy over to Recce, and he just went to Houston, and he went to all that sort of NASA kind of stuff, and obviously that area is landlocked, it's just a big sort of desert really. And then he sort of came, I've written the script now. It starts on a beach, and we were like, a beach? You've written a beach?
Yeah.
It was like, okay, so now we have to find, and then luckily we found that sort of dam, area where they sort of dammed up, and we had this amazing looking beach, so it did work out. But it was just like, that's not what you told us it was going to be. Anyway, we worked it out.
Well, and then the silence ended up becoming my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Of anything. Like I got a silence tattoo planned. It became my gamer tag whenever I play video games. I just think it's like both looking and just the idea is by far the
It's
coolest.
Great. That thing where you instantly look away. It's gone from your memory. It's only when they look at you, and then and that whole idea, exactly, it was such a clever idea, and he wrote it so well. And then I think Toby he just knew what that was going to be, and he was so smart with it, the way we did it, and then the little tricks, and painting yourself in the face, and all those little ideas and stuff. That was great. That was great. I mean, it was was it hard? There was some tough days to do, to make it all feel bigger than it actually was. We only had 3 members of the Silence, and you had to sort of fight a Silence army at the end, and with some clever shot. I mean, it was always the way, whenever you have the Cybermen, you get 3 Cybermen, or you get 3 Daleks, but we always have to make them look like there's 200 of them.
I remember when because the editing of it too, playing with your perception of the silence as well. Like I remember when I think it's Amy turns around from a window, and she suddenly got a bunch. I remember that's one of the few times, and I was like, "Oh fuck!" Like it was, like a lot of these shows I don't get super scared, but that was one of the ones where it literally I felt.
Oh, brilliant!
It was.
That's good news. We got you. That was a great. We were in this quite a spooky house filming that. It was really sort of weird house in the middle of nowhere. It'd been derelict for a few years. And I remember we had this big staircase in the middle of it, where they're walking up this staircase in the show, and then the Sparks thought it was hilarious to they found this what's it called, little fishing line or fishing rod, and at the end of it they put two little sort of leather gloves at the end of it, and then they would sort of fly it around and make people think it was what's it called, a bat, you know. So you just try to land on people's shoulders, you know. And I remember they got Karen Gillan pretty good. You know, she was freaking out.
Yeah, and then her career took off. Great for her.
Oh my God! No, that's incredible. I mean, she had it in her, you know. That's definitely, you know. But it was interesting, you know, because she was so good on camera, but then sometimes you had to remind her. You should be there on camera, like, yeah. I remember the director one time had to go over and sort of go to Karen, you're still in shot. Okay, you might be in the background, but you're still in shot. So please, you know, just be in the scene. Okay, all right, and action. But when she was on, she was incredible. You know, she was so good. Yeah,
yeah. She ended up being a friend. He's not really an acquaintance of mine, but like a friend of a friend, which I
fantastic.
Like, wait,
wow,
2 degrees. But the thing that I thought was hilarious watching, I just watched your episode of Black Mirror this morning, and the thing that I thought was hilarious is because I had looked you up, you know, prior, and
sure.
I guess, you know, if people are listening, they should probably watch the episode. It's out, but
sure.
all of the enemies getting invited to
it's a very similar thing to the
very Pandora-come. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you know, Charlie may have been inspired by that. You know, there may have been some element. He's a big Doctor Who fan too, so there may have been some overlap. You know, and also I think Toby was quite he was part of the development of that, you know, story and script. Certainly, when we got a script and I think he had input early on, but then when we got the script, we were like, oh, not sure about the ending. We're not sure about this, not sure about that, and maybe some of those things may have fed in, you know, from our Doctor Who experience, bringing everybody back.
Were you guys the only episode that was feature length?
Hotel Reverie was close. I think that ended up being 75. I think that was supposed. It was a 90-minute script, so I think it was supposed to be feature length as well. But then they probably just, you know, condensed it a bit in the edit. But yeah, we did 90 minutes and it held up for 90 minutes. I think actually the first cut was probably 2 hours plus. But yeah, I think they found the right length. You know, we didn't outstay our welcome, and hopefully it stayed fun and entertaining all the way through.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, the thing that always impresses me about kind of these modern television shows is that, like, you're given that project, but you're still ostensibly, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like on a TV budget.
Yeah, I mean, there was the great thing about Black Mirror. Black Mirror was a TV show on Channel 4, which actually had Channel 4 comedy money, which was absolutely nothing. And then, so back then when they did Series 3, after Series 2, Channel 4 decided not to carry on with them, that it was getting too expensive for them or whatever. So they just let them go, or allowed them to go out and seek new partners. And then they ended up with Netflix. And Netflix gave them, at the time, a huge budget. You know, it was probably, you know, 5 times or maybe, you know, 10 times what they had to make it on Channel 4. So suddenly they had a whole different level of scope, visual effects, everything. They could take that. And I think, you know, that budget hasn't increased that much. But I think for this particular episode, we were given a decent amount I mean, it was enough to make a small indie feature film, I would say, you know, but it was, you know, also we had quite a lot of these effects, you know, so I don't exactly know what the money was, but I have a feeling that it wasn't terrible, but of course it's not feature money either. You know, it's not what money you get to make a, you know, one of those tentpole movies. You know, we are, you know, probably a 10th of what they get, or a 20th of what they get. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I assume obviously I work primarily these days in documentary now, so my concept of where budgets go is pretty much like whatever the, you know, line producer hands us physically. But but you know, even now with the popularity of like A24 films, there's you know, you get like Death of a Unicorn shooting for whatever it was, like 10 mil or something like that.
Yeah.
So and I imagine that has something to do with obviously the prevalence of newer and less expensive cameras that are still very viable. Obviously, LED lighting brings down your power cost. It's easier to do, all that kind of thing.
I think you can definitely make something decent for 10 million. I think that's probably around the range we were. Maybe
Sure.
I don't know. I can't say. But also, what Netflix will do, they have a sort of a special thing for their budgets is whether you have a certain amount of money to make it for, and we knew it was a 90 minutes, so they're giving us 90 minutes worth of production money. But then there's the cast on top, and if they feel that the cast members that are on the show add to the value, they'll top up the money, so the cast sort of sits outside of your shooting budget, so you can actually, that's how you can get people like Jesse Plemons and Kristen Milioti. They would charge a little bit more that you normally would for, but then that's covered, but you still have the same amount of production money to make it for. You don't have to take that out of your own budget, so to speak.
Right. And Jimmy Simpson's great too. I mean, he like going.
Oh, he's amazing. They're all great. Jimmy's probably the funniest one. He's the one who sort of keeps the humor going in this episode. Everything he does and says is funny.
Well, I was going to say him coming from It's Always Sunny. I was like, oh yeah, that guy's great. And then Westworld comes out, and I was like, wait a second, because he was so good in Westworld. But talk about the pre-production for this, because obviously it was probably more involved than like Demon 79. I remember loving.
Brilliant. No, thank you.
Because I haven't seen like every episode of Black Mirror, but every once in a while, like my girlfriend's watching, and I was like, oh yeah, all right, I remember just looking through your list, like, oh, I do remember that one. That one's great. I imagine this was now that I think about it, though, there wasn't a ton of locations. You guys play it off really well, where it feels way bigger than, I guess, it's office.
Are you thinking of Callister or Demon now?
Callister.
Callister. I mean, what did we have? I mean, it's a lot of it takes place in the spaceship. Then a lot of it is in the office. And exactly, we had one night on the street outside the office.
Right.
We had 2 days in a 3 days maybe. No, I think 2 days in a forest just outside Pinewood, a place called Black Park, which we turned into a jungle. Then we went 2 days to a quarry in Wales, where we shot Walton's sort of world, where catching weird squid and having little stone friends. And what was the last thing? Oh yeah, and then we had one day at the end where we built the snow planet on a different stage. We had all sorts of discussion. We're supposed to go to another quarry for that. At one point, we were going to go to Iceland. We had all sorts of ideas of how we're going to do it, and then in the end, it sort of worked out that it was cheaper to build it. So we built that sort of opening snow world. So that was it. It wasn't. You're right. It wasn't that big because it was so contained in the studio. I mean, our location, our tech recce, our tech scout, it took a day. We just went around there. That's it. And the same, actually, it was even shorter for the original Callister. I think he just had his flat, his flat and the office, and then everything else was the studio. It was just so small. That's which is nice.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, is this the only sequel that Black Mirror has ever done?
Yes, it is. I mean, there's always. I mean, they keep sort of doing all these, what's it called, Easter eggs. There's always some kind of hint, like some character gets mentioned in another episode, and the pizzeria of something is called something you heard of before. There's all these little overlaps. There was another sort of stealth sequel, you could say, or certainly returning characters in an episode called Placing. This series, sorry. And that was they had some people from Bandersnatch come back, some of those characters, but it was just sort of more. The only sort of true sequel, absolutely, is this one. But also, this had a fun development, because we weren't. I mean, even just after the original came out, I think even in the original interviews, I remember Toby sort of saying that this episode was pretty much the best pilot that he'd ever seen. Because it's sort of, you have this crazy story, you set up all these characters, and, you kill off this bad guy, and you end with them going off on more adventures, and you feel like, well, then let's get us episode 2. Let's get us a whole series with these guys because they could do so much in this world. So that was the original idea. They sort of thought, you know what, maybe within the Black Mirror universe, we could have our own little miniseries. So for a long while, it was an 8-part. It took about half-hour episodes, like comedy, kind of comedy action, half-hour, 8 parts. Then suddenly it was 6 parts, half hour. Then it became 4 parts, 1 hour. Then it was 3 parts, 1 hour. And actually, just before we made this in January 24, but we were actually due to shoot it in October 23. And around that time was when the SAG strikes happened. Right. But had they not happened, we would have shot a 3-part series of USS Callister. That's what we had the scripts for, and that's what we were going to make. And we all sort of set up to do it. And then I think things got around, and because of the messing up, and then also getting the cast together for the amount of time, and all the schedules, and it sort of became a thing. You know what? Let's make it part of the series. We call it. We just make it a sequel, make it 90 minutes, and maybe that's the right thing. So the scripts, they've been writing so many scripts. They've been writing scripts for like 3 or 4 years. So that also, that I think that was difficult as well for Charlie and the other co-writers, to actually get it down to this piece to make all the ideas fit into 90 minutes. But that's what we ended up with. But just an interesting sort of development of the whole thing.
Well, it plays very well as a standalone. The recap from the first, I suppose, episode was helpful.
Helps.
But yeah, nice.
Absolutely.
But it did kind of make me think, like, especially with a show like Black Mirror, any of these kind of anthology series, it's rare that you get to go back and revisit the material. Was there any kind of consideration when remaking the ship or anything like that, or the way that you approached it, that you were like, what, let's plus this up a little bit? Because I know in the first episode, the original episode, whatever you want to call it, there was like format changes, lens changes, stuff like that, which doesn't necessarily take place here.
It didn't happen this time around. No, it sort of that it lent, the original story lent to doing that, and we really wanted to do the opening because it just made sense. It was a 60s TV show. And also that story had sort of a perfect arc from a cinematographer's point of view. You start in the 60s and you end in the future, and we could sort of take that whole journey along the way. Plus there was all these little sort of mini journeys within the game, is a game off, is a game on, so that was great. I think this one, we basically just thought, okay, we took the last scene of that first episode, which was when they come into infinity, the new sort of world. It all looks like J.J. Abrams kind of Star Trek world with the flares and, the spinning camera and, all that energy. And we just thought, well, that's where we start. And then let's just see where that takes us. So we couldn't go back, there was different ideas, it was like, when we go to the planet, should that be a different, format or different idea? But it just never felt right. It felt like they're just in this world, that this is how it works now. And we just have to, move on from that. One of the ideas we sort of carried on from the original was whether you were on a Steadicam or whether you were handheld, and we always had the real world, like Nanette's world, we always had handheld in the original. So also when she gets into the game, she takes the handheld camera with her into the game world. And then whenever the game turns on, then the camera gets a bit more fluid and a bit more Steadicam-y. And then as soon as it stops, then it's back on the shoulder. So that was that approach we took with us, to this one as well.
I feel so smart because I wrote exactly that. I was like, real world handheld space looks locked off for Steadicam. Good for me.
You noticed. Well done.
Well, because normally I wouldn't, but when you're watching to talk about it. But
no, it's just how do you distinguish it? And of course we then also we mix it up. It's not rigid. And also it'd be handheld on a dolly, and it'd be like different, sometimes we did a handheld shot, we would try to walk her into the office, and it was just so bumpy, you couldn't see anything, and we went, okay, let's just roll on a dolly, but the camera just sits on the shoulder of someone on the dolly, and that gave it a bit of a sort of a handheld feel, that kind of stuff. But also, there's also shots where suddenly we're back on the sticks, we're back on the dolly, for big dialogue scenes, because it just, sometimes it gets too much, when everything's handheld. But also that then caused problems, because we then have the scene. I'm jumping now, but there's suddenly two Nanettes and there's two Waltons, and they end up inside the spaceship. But we had to film that all handheld in our theory. So we suddenly had to come up with how do we shoot doubles, locked off shots, but still feeling handheld. So what we then went for was we had what's it called, a techno dolly, which is I think sort of fairly old tech now. It's probably 20 years old at least. So it's the guy who does the techno cranes, but they built this thing called the techno dolly, and it's telescopic, but it's also programmable. And the great feature it has is you take the techno dolly and you take all the what's it called, all the restriction out of the head. Is that what it's called? So
friction.
All friction, all the friction, exactly. Take all the friction out of the head, make it completely loose. It still records what's going on. You actually operate it, even though it sits on an arm. You can sort of operate it handheld, and it will remember that move. So we could sort of walk around and do our little handheld shots with her in space, in the room. We did, and the great thing, because it's programmable, meant we could get a wide shot, we could get her single, we could get a single on Walton, we could get a single on, 4 different sets, and then we send them off to change, and then we come back, and then we shoot the 4 plates when they're back in their other costumes. So
that's so cool.
Yeah,
because I imagine most people would just lock it off and then do the shake and post.
Yeah, but we wanted to walk with her a little bit, and you'll see in a little bit. There's a couple of moves where the camera just moves a bit. I mean, we probably could have used it even better. This would be the lesson that I learned, and I will then pass on to anybody listening to this podcast. Is have a test day. If you ever do a techno dolly or you do any kind of motion control, get a test day in, because that was killer. There was a lot of teething problems and noodling and getting things right, and took a long time to get ready. And I remember Toby, who's sort of famously impatient. He doesn't, him sort of having to sit on his hands and wait for this technical beast to sort of work. As he found that very frustrating. But we did get through it, and it did work exactly as intended. The one issue we had was actually the sound editing. There was a thing I never even considered before. Again, this is what a test day is useful for. Is because you record a take, you record all the sound for that, but then when you shoot the next take, you need to just play the dialogue that those actors that are in the shot are saying, but everybody else should still say their bit, or they need to hear their cues. And then something has to be played out, and then something has to be edited out, but it all has to stay in sync. And that sort of editing process was killer, because you just need someone there who has to work out and know exactly which line to take out, what line to put in, and sync it all up to the take, which is that's tricky. And then the other thing we had was everything in that spaceship was on some kind of chase. Everything was moving, those video screens everywhere. All those things had to be synced too. So we had to work out how to sync LEDs, how to sync video screens, how to sync. Everything had to be completely perfectly lined up. Otherwise, the effect was gone. So yeah, there was a lot of R&D to get that all come together.
So was that because I once tried to use time code to make a music video more easily syncable, and I never really I didn't end up doing that job anyway, but I was like researching how to play back with have the playback sync with all the clips so that you could just drop them all into a timeline and have the exact. Were you guys doing something like that, or how'd you end up?
A little bit, exactly, because the second take would just start on the same time code, exactly, and you could just drop it on top of each other, and absolutely, that is the idea. But the problem is, you then live have to do some editing on set. That's the problem. If you could send it all off to the edit and then come back the next day, it would have been fine. But you sort of have to do it now. You have to be ready. And also the whole thing is you go for take 5 was the good take. Okay, now work on take 5, and now we're going to do another take while you're editing take 5. It was just things got missed, and it could just have been slightly smoother. That's all.
Yeah, I mean the first episode was 6 years ago.
Yeah, 2017, I think it came out. We shot it in 2016, I think. Beginning of 2016.
So
So
how did your approach change between then and now? Obviously, a lot of new tech. Lighting has gotten a lot.
yeah,
The LED has gotten a lot better. Obviously, cameras have changed. But
oh, absolutely. There
any
was
lessons you
there's a
learned between then and
few,
two?
yeah, and of course we sort of, well, there's a lot of, I sort of remember sort of seeing the original episode. I still sort of every now and again when I glance in the background, I can see sort of LEDs sort of half falling out of the set because they weren't glued properly in, and there's all these little details. I go, oh, that's annoying. Oh, that's annoying. So we sort of knew how to build this set better. Where the first time round we just had to make it work. And I think our first lighting package came in like 3 times more than it was supposed to cost. Like you're spending the entire budget of the whole film on your lighting. You can't have that anyway. So we had to come up with these little ingenious solutions. Lots of LED tape, and just we had to build our own fixtures. That ended up being cheaper than renting in lighting equipment because it didn't. LEDs were still sort of a fairly a novelty at that time. Sky panels had only just really sort of became sort of studio, something that film crews used. So yeah, I mean, so we were able to make the spaceship a lot better. We got much better LEDs, and also this time instead of using RGB tape, we used RGB WW, which has a much better white, because we ended up there's a lot of sort of pink tones. We had this issue, for instance, in the original when she wakes up in that little sort of light pod or med pod or whatever it is, the sort of this sort of lights up like that. We use sort of a cheaper kind of LED tape for that than we used out in the corridor, which meant that the lighting looked completely different. It ended up working for the show. It felt like it was sort of warmer in there and slightly greener out in the corridor when we graded it. But it was sort of the other way around. It was everything in that room was totally pink because, we used these cheap LEDs and they just had this weird magenta spin. So anyway, so that was a lesson. Let's get proper LEDs for everything. And then the last thing, actually, that I was quite happy with. We have outside the spaceport, or whatever you call it, the viewport in the main sort of control area, or in the what's it called, the deck. We just had a big green screen there for the first, episode or the first time we shot it. And green screen is great, but I think there was a lot of green spill on the set, and it was sort of. I mean, I think it cost them a lot of money in post to fix that, to do all those shots. And this effects this time round realized that we were gonna do so many shots and so many shots looking towards the screen that actually it made sense for us to put a video wall outside. So this time round when we were on set, we were actually in space. So it was a great day actually taking the cast in there for the first day and then going on. Actually, it's all there. We're actually flying through space. And the space was animated as well. They put all these little star fields that had slightly sort of movement on them. And then of course hyperspace was great because you could actually play that as a video file. So when it works both that they can look at it, but it also lights the set, and it lights the people, looking at it, so that was super useful. And again, for the last scene, spoiler, when you get to when they all get inside Nanette's head, we could sort of actually play the video. The little handheld shot that we shot for her POV shot, we played on the screen, but behind them. So when they're reacting to what's going on the video screen, like it's happening live. It sort of helped them sort of sync up their movements, whether they're falling left or falling right, as he bumps around in the what's it called, the hospital.
Yeah, well, and actually that brings up something funny that I thought, because obviously, there's a lot of different Star Treks to choose from. I saw in some other interviews you did that, obviously at least with the more modern version of these characters that we're doing a lot of JJ, like you said, steady pinging the thing, but the chair acting I think is very very Star Trek. I don't think there's any other show that does chair acting.
That's what you have to do. I mean, the set is just too big. I mean, it'd be lovely to put it all on a gimbal, and I'm sure that's what JJ really wanted to do if he could, but the set is just so massive. So what you have to do is everybody to the left, everybody to the right. And it's great fun. It makes part of it. Actually, this is a great little sort of Easter egg. I always sort of love when I see the original one with Jesse Plemons. So in that 60s version, they have this whole thing where oh, you're going into the cluster, oh, that's gonna be terrible, and the whole spaceship starts to shake, and everybody's shaking like this, but Jesse Plemons is just standing completely perfectly still, because spaceship shaking does not affect him. He's not
Right.
going to sort of degrade himself to that kind of stuff, and I just love that. They're so cool. If you just push in on him, everybody's shaking around him, and he's just there, completely steady. Yeah. Anyway, it's a
There's a
nice
great
detail, and yeah.
Yeah, there's this great series that someone put up on, I think it's on YouTube or whatever, but they took all the like next generation clips of
Yeah.
like the ship getting hit and they
Oh yeah.
stabilize it. So you
Oh
just see
right.
everyone.
To see how silly it looks when the
Yeah. No one's going in the same direction either. It's all just
yeah. That too.
just popcorn,
That too. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
We tried to be quite good with that actually, because Toby sort of understands that. So he will sort of stand there and go, "Everybody left," and he sort of stands in front of them. We stand on the viewport and sort of dance it out, so everybody reacts at the same time.
Yeah. I was wondering, because this is a conversation that I love having with people who work on
Oh sure.
anything, but especially with stuff like this, is like obviously VFX is going to be part of it, right? You got lasers, you get
Yeah.
whatever. But I was
Yeah.
wondering, in what ways did the VFX team help you out from a production standpoint?
Well, the video screen was incredible. That worked out really well. I mean, they were just super accommodating. Like anything we sort of came up with.
Because like sometimes
Yeah,
people delete stands, like boom pole,
yeah,
like
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
stuff that just
Oh,
made it faster
absolutely.
for you to shoot.
100%. They do that all the time. You sort of become part of the process, but also that won't necessarily happen on a sci-fi show. It seems to happen on every show.
Right.
I was just doing a show with before this, I did a show with Guy Ritchie, and it's a thing called Mobland. It just came out on Paramount Plus with Tom Hardy and Pierce Brosnan. But Guy Ritchie doesn't like to wait around, so you'll do two takes of anything, and you sort of come in and go, oh, I'm really sorry, Guy, can we go again? Because there was a lighting stand in the back of that shot, and I think I saw a reflection or something. No, I'm happy, moving on. Okay. So we just knew, he just wouldn't care, and he just knew that was going to get fixed. That was going to get fixed. Even when you sort of try, well, I can actually help with that. No, I don't care. Moving on. We'll work it out in post. Okay, fine. And all those things do get fixed. So it happens on all shows. But this as well, it sort of helps when you are a big VFX production and there's so many shots anyway. To paint out the cable while they're putting in a big star field at the same time. It's never going to be a big issue. They can do all that for you. And we did that first time round as well. I remember there were some angles, so looking straight up at Jesse when he was sort of talking to Nanette when she's on the ground. And we had these big sort of lights hung in the rig, and it would just take us half an hour to take them down. And as I went to the guys, he said, "Okay, can I leave them up there?" And they went, "Fine, we'll paint them out." So no, they're super helpful with all that kind of stuff. And yeah, and it makes the I try not to take advantage, but it does make the film making process slightly easier, yeah. And also there's the little things later where you things that go wrong, Like at Demon 79, we had someone getting stabbed in the chest with a knife, and then the blood was supposed to just pool out a little bit and get on his legs, kind of thing. And we did it, and we had like 2 minutes left of the day. If the blood that was supposed to come out didn't work, it just sort of splurted out like this, and then there's something else. And we went, "Oh, that's shit." And then the producer come up, "Yeah, I'm sorry, guys, we don't have time to reset. That's it. That's a wrap." Oh, wait, how do you have to come back? What are we gonna do here? And then VFX went, "Don't worry about it. We'll sort it out." And they did it. They changed it all up. The splurt was painted out. They made the blood sort of seep out under his jacket, and they could do all that kind of stuff now. It's not free, of course, but you can get those little fixes when you just run out of time sometimes.
Well, and it's always cool to see that kind of stuff or have it explained or whatever, because it eventually works its way down to, like my level. For like, I remember when I think it was Mindhunter came out and they were showing these production stills, and you saw this like, boom pole, lighting, flags, whatever. And then they would show the final frame, and there's none of that there. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, we just get a plate and then it's not even VFX. It's literally just they would take a clean print. And I was like, what? So I started, or like color correction now is so good that like, if you're supposed to flag off a wall, I'll just be like,
exactly,
let me color it. Cause I at my level, like,
exactly,
make me the colors. And I'll just take it down later. Like, I'm not gonna
exactly that.
let's say
I'm constantly making those kind of calculations, it comes with experience as well, but you sort of know that's going to take me 5 seconds in the grade. I'm not going to, it's going to take a half hour now to put flags up and do all that kind of stuff now. Leave it. Yeah. And the same thing when you shoot two cameras, that's the whole thing with sound would always go, they want the microphone as close as they can get, and I'm trying to do a wide shot and a mid shot at the same time. And they go, well, sound's going to be terrible on the mid shot. And go, oh, just put the microphone where you want it. The other camera's locked off. And we'll just literally, at the end of the shot, let's take the boom pole out and we get it played for 2 seconds and then that shot's covered. So it is that simple. And it is stuff that's not even considered VFX, they do that stuff in the edit or it's the online, it's the same kind of people who put the credits on, they also just clean up that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's really, it's creating what was initially, I'm stealing this phrase from Michael Cioni, but it's creating what filmmaking used to be a very linear process. And now it's becoming far more parallel, where you can have those thoughts and even have, obviously with DITs now and things can happen on set that are supposed to happen in post. And it's just really, I feel like it's probably very, very freeing.
Absolutely. We had a fantastic video playback guy on this job. I forget his name now, sadly, but he sort of did live edits for us, so he would sort of, when he got some rushes in there, he would put it together, cut it around, so we, like 5 minutes after we shot something, we'd just walk up to him, just show us, how does it work? And he'd just show us a quick edit. Go, okay, it's going to be fine. Move on. Okay, let's do something else now. So that kind of stuff happens, and is super, super useful. And it's not even an editor on set. It's just that the guys will have all their playback and DIT, and they can all do that stuff now. The computers are so advanced and technology has come so fast that's easy to do.
Yeah, dailies have become hourlies.
Yeah. You can literally, exactly. And then exactly, you put a look on it as you're doing it, because you used to have a dailies colorist who would put the look on overnight. And now, you're doing it. The picture you see on the monitor, that everybody sees on the monitor, is pretty much very, very close to the final graded picture you're going to see when it goes out. But also, I learned that as a lesson as well. I learned from from experiences. The editors and the directors and producers, they get very attached to whatever image that they sit and watch in the edit for 6 months. So actually, it happened very much on the first USS Callister was when it happened to me. We did this. The spaceship was very sort of bold, colorful, very bright white, and pink colors and all that kind of stuff. And then I took it into the grade, and I sort of felt, oh, that's not Black Mirror. Black Mirror is much more dark and green and gray, and let's pull the color out. Let's make it a bit more noisy and interesting. And anyway, I sort of played with it, and then Charlie came in, and Toby, the director, came in and watched it and sort of went, "What's that?" I went, "No, I just thought I'd make it cool." And they went, "No, it was brilliant. It was really good. You were making the right thing. You had the right colors, all the things that it needed to be." Yeah, but no, but take it back. Anyway, so we took it back, and it was totally the right decision. I think it was just my own sort of anxiety about being cool enough. I was really nervous that, coming from Doctor Who and from other kids' TV in the past, am I making it too colorful? Am I just going too, is it just looking like all those other, crap BBC shows? But it was totally the right tone and what we should do. So it was all fine.
Well, I was just thinking about like the hourlies, like also the speed at which cards can dump now. Yeah, you used to have to wait hours for it. Now it's like, a couple minutes and you've got everything there. But
you say that, but it's actually slightly different because there's also there's a whole sort of world of sort of post-production that sort of come in. There's no managers and middle managers, and there's a dailies colorist, and then there's a dailies colorist team, then there's a backup supervisor, and then I know I'm making up names now, but there's this, whenever you have your every production, you have to have a call about the delivery and how we're going to do the rushes, and there's always just like 50 people on it and going, who are you? What do you all do? Anyway, so there's this whole pipeline of things it has to go through, which is great, and they all need to be there, of course. But it also means that when you take a card off, you can't just take it and delete it. You have to take it off, copy it into a computer, and then that has to be copied to a second computer. then there's another computer that gets stored and then put in a safe place, and all this kind of stuff. And then it has to go into the edit. And then at some point, like the next day, you know, sort of late lunchtime, the edit will go, yeah, it's safe. We definitely have all the backups. Everything's covered. Now you can delete the card. You know, right. So the card sort of sits in a zone where don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it. So you can run out of cards, even though you should be able just to recycle them straight away. You know, you actually, in theory, you only need 2 cards. 1 card to shoot on and 1 card to download, and then swap them around. But we end up with, you know, we have 20 cards still because we need to sort of, we have had all the rushes shot that day, plus we have to have enough cards for the next day as well until they give us the all clear.
Well, and I will say that
and it can.
Okay. I will say that I do that as well because I'm terrified of wiping a card. Yeah. So I'll bring. Luckily,
of course,
C500.
It has happened to me. It has happened to me.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Actually, funny enough, you mentioned Doctor Who. So Doctor Who in America. I think it was the first day of filming. So we were filming on this beach that we talked about earlier. And we shot all the stuff with the spaceman coming out of the water, and it had been this perfectly sea. We started a lot of stuff with Matt Smith getting killed and talking to a spacesuit, and you know, lots of shots. Anyway, we come up, and then I talk to the guys. All right, we need to change cards. You know, okay, it's this card. You know, and then the guys went, "Did you change it?" No, I didn't change it. I just deleted it. What? No. What? Anyway, we lost the whole morning's rushes on one of the cameras. The whole morning, and we just went, it's gone. Yeah, but we might be able to save it. And just took it off to the truck, you know, and there were some notes, or you know, if we just have to go, we probably won't be able to save it. So we had to go out and shoot it again. So that whole morning, or the whole afternoon, we then had to go back and do these shots. And of course, they were never as good as they were that morning. But that was the big lesson, you know. Just
that's why, like, the Alexa Mini scares me because it's only got the 1 slot. Right on the 2 Canon bodies that I have, they have 2 slots, and you record both of them. You can, I don't always, but you can record to both.
Yeah.
So that, but I'm always just like have like twice as many cards as I need for the day, and then I never use those little. I don't know if you ever run into them, but those little orange LaCie drives that are the slowest things on the planet because they have an orange.
Oh, I see.
Bumper on them. All the producers are like, "Oh, they're safe. It's rubber." And you're like, stop. SSDs exist. But if Lord, if that was me, I'd probably go to the safest, quietest corner and just vomit for 20 minutes. I can't imagine.
I think there was a lot. There was a lot of gritted teeth, and you know, a lot of frowning and upset faces. But anyway, we just had to go. Well, okay, shit happens, and went back and started some more. Nobody got fired. It was all fine. You know,
that's good. That's all we can ask for. You had mentioned the colors. I did want to ask about what the grading process. I imagine you made a shooting LUT first.
Yeah, we had a shooting. Did we have a shooting LUT? I think it was more. Our LUT was more sort of. Yes, I did have a shooting LUT because what I was trying to do was just a little bit of emulate what we did on the first time around. So I did have a LUT for the office to give that sort of that slightly more greeny look. We ended up sort of knocking that back because the office had changed to become a little bit more colorful, you know. So we didn't go as far as we did on the first episode. But I did give that a look, and then space had a look. And I think when we went to the planet, that was called the Jungle Planet, you know, I think we beefed that up quite a lot. So sort of we had that sort of teal and orange kind of Michael Bay kind of zone. That's where we were thinking of taking it. So we did try, but I think it was rather than being a LUT, it was more the DIT would just sort of tweak it on set, you know. So we were sort of watching it on the monitors, and they would have sort of the right kind of colors while we were shooting.
Gotcha. So this is a dumb question. I feel like I should know this. I don't know why this is the first time I've ever asked this.
Oh, sure.
I assume the DIT. I feel so stupid. I feel like the DIT must be between the camera. It goes camera, DIT, and then like I guess Video Village. It's not like a separate.
I think he's in between. Exactly. That's right. Okay. You know, so he sends it. So he gets it. He corrects the color, and then he sends that image to the video operator, and then the video operator then sends that his image to all the monitors that are all around. But sometimes, I mean, certain situations they might filter it in a slightly different way, but that's how it's supposed to be. So you get the colors on, it has the right look, and then everybody watches the same thing.
I don't know why in
Yeah,
my head for the longest time I just thought like, I guess I just never thought of it. I was just like, there's a guy on set or a girl or whoever. There's someone on set
yeah,
who colors
yeah,
it,
yeah.
magic, and then monitor.
Magic.
Yeah, I don't.
No. But and also that, I mean, this is a very, very recent thing. Certainly for me. I mean, it's been going on for a few years now, but it's not all budgets of production that will sort of have this kind of service. So quite a lot. You still have a DAT, but they will just you just give them the rushes, and they'll sit in a little tent next to the truck, and they'll just basically doing the backups. And while they're doing the backups, they put a look on it that you talked about, and then at the end of the day you sort of just look at the, some reference stills and going, yeah, that's the right directions. I'm happy with that. Okay, send it off. Where, the whole sort of onset DIT is a new process, but it's been sort of embraced by everybody. I think the thing that you're getting the right look up front, I think it does save time all the way through. Because one of the issues you have, for instance, is all the VFX. They sort of need to know where they're going to end up and what kind of look it's going to look like at the end. If they just got a lock C or something that was sort of colored the wrong way, their VFX might end up looking wrong because they're working so off balance, that it won't marry up. So them getting ahead of the curve with the final or close to a final look will make all that kind of stuff work so much better.
Yeah, I guess tent person is more what I thought was happening, and then maybe they would give you like a
Yeah.
filming blood or something. But obviously, we've
Yeah.
had SDI forever. You can just put stuff in the channel,
Yeah, exactly.
I guess one thing I did want to ask is on the first version of the show, the first episode, whatever. I saw in an interview you had mentioned how at the time tracking technology hadn't really been shored up yet, so they were making you shoot clean anamorphics.
Yes. No, it's clean anamorphics. Yeah. So what they made us shoot on was because we wanted to shoot anamorphically, just because we were we loved the JJ Star Trek so much, and also I mean all the classic your Star Wars and your Indiana Jones, and we just knew that sort of anamorphic look was just the right thing to go for, that sort of extra wide frame. But they would only allow the masked anamorphics because it's a perfect lens. It's so perfectly engineered that everything, all the mechanics just work perfectly. There's no barreling. Everything sits in the right place, and it's easy for them to track. But also, it makes it incredibly boring.
Right.
You could basically, if you put a masked anamorphic on, you could basically just shoot on a spherical lens. They look identical. Or not, close to. You get a little bit of that, so-called what's it called? The highlights you get in the back, the out of focus, the bokeh. You get a little bit of that sort of long bokeh, but that's it. All the other stuff, the little sort of band of out of focus top and bottom, the little vignetting, the blue flare, or the way that a sort of good classic anamorphic lens flares. None of that stuff. They're taking it all out. But we did do at the end of that first episode. We were then allowed one day, but very kindly by our VFX supervisors, because he said we need those flares. We want it to look like JJ. When they get into infinity, it has to be that look, and we have to get it in camera. So we then was recommended these lenses called Toyo, which is a Japanese make. I think there's only 1 or 2 sets in the world or something. I mean, I don't know how we had those, but anyway, they look beautiful. They are very vintage to the point that they were sort of basically falling apart. So we were sort of putting it on the camera, and it would take like 15 minutes, 20 minutes to change the lens, but they look great. It did exactly what we wanted. And we sort of knew that was the look that we had to carry on into the future. So we had to get, a lens that can do all that kind of stuff, but also maybe not fall apart. So when we came to this one, we then went Panavision, and we went with the anamorphic T series, which is sort of based on the B series and C series, but it's sort of a slightly more modern version. I'm actually not sure when they made it. I sort of feeling it's like 2000s or something. It's a really, it has all the right things that you want from an anamorphic lens. Has the right coating, the right kind of flare, has the banding top and bottom, and then it also just sits in a modern housing, and it's quite good for close focus as well. I think most, if you get certain anamorphic lenses, most of them will have a close focus of 4 feet, which
Right.
sort of, when you set up now normal shot, it means everything is just a mid shot. And whenever you want to do any kind of close up, you have to stick a diopter in. You have to stick a +2 diopter or +3 diopter, and constantly swapping diopters. But the T series is 2 foot, I think, close focus, which is much more sort of reasonable. You can shoot the handheld shot, you can push in on somebody, and it'll still look good when you're up sort of close to them. So yeah, so that was the choice, and it looked great, and we shot the whole episode on those lenses. We didn't sort of swap or change for different bits. So
Did you have any diffusion?
the only time we used a bit of diffusion, we did it, but when we went to Daly's, what's he called? Robert Daly's house.
His
So
house,
both in the
right.
past, when we sort of go back to the 90s, that sort of environment, lucky with a bit of sunny weather that day. So we wanted to bloom a bit and sort of have that sort of bit, classic Barbara Cartland, sort of memory kind of diffusion. But then it also felt like it made sense that he stayed in that kind of world. So when she comes back and visits him, when he's inside the heart of infinity and sits in the center of this little weird swirly thing, we kept the soft filter in because I think it looked good with the highlights in his
Yeah.
little garage. So we kept it in, and it gave it a vibe, I thought. So it was just a black satin, I think we used,
Nice.
but most of the other stuff was all clean, no filters. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I had written flashback here, but then I was like, I felt like it maybe saw, but that's probably just the coding on the T
Yeah.
series. But the thing I know it's late there, so I'm gonna let you go. But the thing I did want to ask is, do you know? Because again, I'm just trying to steal. How they how they emulated in the first episode, how they emulated the look. Because didn't you say they applied like
the 60s
sort of? Yeah, well, just it was just some interview, like some BSC interview you did,
Sure.
something where you had mentioned that because you had to shoot clean, they would like emulate the anamorphic look on the footage.
I think so. I can't remember what that would be referenced to. I think we probably got them to warp certain shots. I think. I don't think we did that too much. I know it's something they can do, and they do a lot more now. That when you shoot, because for instance, I shot a show a couple of years ago called SAS Rogue Heroes, and we wanted it all again to feel anamorphic. Maybe I'll just have a style. I just want to shoot it anamorphically. But it was another anamorphic show, and we shot on these very sort of bendy lenses called Cower, and they're very lightweight, and they look great. But every time you wanted a vis effect shot, then the vis effect department said, "Can you please shoot that on a spherical lens?" And of course, spherical looks completely different. It matched a little bit. Of course, suddenly the lines are all straight, and so they would on those shots, they would put some anamorphic characteristics into all their spherical shots and just make it sort of feel more bedded in. And I think the same was the case for some of the Demon 79. I think we did it there as well. I don't remember so much for USS Callister. I think that was pretty much straight up, apart from I don't think that. Yeah, I mean, they probably helped us out with certain bits here and there. I can't remember. Okay.
The other reason I ask is because I'm currently in the process of trying in Resolve to figure out how to do that in a way that makes sense. Because like one thing that I figured out is obviously, like you were saying, the edges of anamorphics get kind of fudgy.
Yeah.
If you just put a mask over it and try to blur the edges, it doesn't look right. It doesn't even fall off correctly. And so I found a way to, like, using the input from a different mask, you can use the tilt shift blur, and it actually blends correctly, and it has an anamorphism slider. So that's like one element. But a little bulge, whatever.
But also what we do on set is we shoot lens grids. So basically you shoot a big grid all sort of perfectly square, when you shoot it. And then you have every single lens, you shoot them on that format. And then when you have an anamorphic lens, of course, the lens grid will look completely sort of bent, crazy like that. But what they do is they take that information into the computer and sort of, so they're able to unbend it. So when they do their vis effects, they do it in the unbended version, and then they can put the bend back into it.
Right.
They sort of know what
negative and hit enter.
Exactly, and so they take all those characteristics. But so when they do those lens grids, it just means they basically have that lens in some kind of, folder somewhere, and they can just put that. They can attach that look to any shot you want, afterwards. And I know you totally mentioned Mindhunter before, and House of Cards. I know that's exactly what David Fincher does. He shoots everything spherical, completely, perfectly square, clean, but he loves the anamorphic look. So whenever he has a wide shot and he feels like, no, this should feel more anamorphic, he adds it in post. And then he gets that little slight bend and that kind of, but he's a perfectionist. He needs to control every part of his. I worked with some of his team, and they were talking about how precise, how exact he was with everything. So I think he just loves to be. Yeah, he doesn't want anything done by chance.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his, and I've spoken with his DP, one of them. Actually, I've spoken to like 5 of his DPs at this point. But
Eric, yeah.
And Eric was telling me that another thing they did, because obviously they'll VFX in the anamorphic flares and stuff like that. But he was telling me on The Killer they used this plugin for Resolve called Scatter to do artificial filtration. And I started playing with that too. And actually a buddy of mine just designed his own called DigiDiff that just came out, and that is really compelling price to performance wise. But I'm still still in beta. But yeah, I'm starting to. I used to be very like, oh, we got to get it all in camera, but now I feel like the tools are getting better. It's like, if this is going to save us, especially with like, key frameable diffusion, if something's too backlit and you're using real diffusion, it just gets all washed. It's like, it would be nice to just,
do it later. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, definitely. But then there's all the certain things you get, when you are shooting with the right lens, with the right flare, when everything sort of comes together, sometimes you can't match that either. You sort of have to go for it, and then hope you can, if there's a problem, then maybe they can fix the problem. But we just, going back to that other show, the SAS Rogue Heroes, we shot that in absolutely no time, and it was, I sort of remember so many days where it's just like at 10 minutes left of the day, and like, oh, sun's going down, something's happening over here. Okay, just put something on the camera, put slow-mo, go slow-mo, whatever, and we just shoot something, and then somehow you sort of watch it go out and go, oh my God, that looks looks like we had all the time in the world and really composed these shots beautifully, but it's literally just, 2 cameramen just running around like headless chickens and just collecting some stuff that may work.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing with, experience that you can't really teach is like, if you're given enough time to consider something, you will probably overthink it, and that it becomes worse. Whereas if you have to go by instinct and you have the experience, it'll kick in and you'll start ignoring the little voice. It's like, what if you used a split diopter? Like, shut up. Like,
exactly. Just shoot it. Just shoot something. That became on that show, the method became basically just shoot something, just shoot something. At least you have a scene, you have something to then cut out of the show. But if you're talking about it and say, oh, it could be this, could be that, you got nothing, then you don't have a scene. So anyway, our philosophy was just keep shooting. And then luckily I was working with a director who, at least had some sense of quality, so he wouldn't use anything that was absolutely dreadful. He used the good bits. But because we just went for it, we got so much more in the show that we probably would have had done it any other way.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you go, but my final question was, because I've never seen the show, was that actually episodes of Real Housewives of Atlanta, or did you have to reshoot those?
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I'd love to be able to tell you that. I think it's just it's real episodes. I don't know how they got. I have no idea. We didn't have those on set. When we played that back, that was a green screen, and we sort of had an idea about what might happen in those particular clips. I think one of the writers, there's a lady called Bisha, who also wrote Deal in '79. I think she was all across, she's like, no, I know everything about the American, the Atlanta, is this kind of stuff, She put all this kind of bits into the script. But I assume that we got the right license and we were allowed to use them. And also it would have happened early on because it was on our script pages and they never told us it was going to be any different. So yeah, it must have, they must have just have agreed to it. I don't think it's not a Netflix show, is it? Housewives of Atlanta? I'm not sure. I don't think so.
It probably is, right? If they were able to get the rights to it, but
then it's so easy for them. Also, they keep sort of, because that's what Charlie usually does, is that he keeps sort of just feeding on himself, So when we did the other episode, Bête Noire, they ended up not using it in the episode, but they were at one scene, they were sitting in a sofa watching a TV show, and they ended up, the TV show they were watching was an episode from the previous season of Black Mirror. That kind of stuff he loves doing. But this time he could have done that, but I guess it felt more fun that they were just watching something completely, mindless entertainment.
Yeah. Because in my head I was like, that would be hilarious if they went and reshot just like a few shots
episodes for us.
Yeah.
I mean, they may have done. I'd never heard them say anything about that. So I assume that they just picked some real. They got the license to use some real clips.
Yeah. Well, it's a great episode. It might as well be a movie.
Thank you.
Check that out on a Blu-ray, and I really appreciate you spending the time to chat with me.
No, thank you, Ken. It was great talking to you too.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your night, or I guess enjoy.
Thank you so much.
I don't know.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I will go and say hello to my family. At least I'm home, so I don't have far to travel.
Fair enough. Well, I hope I can have you back soon next time you do something else.
Oh, I'd love to. Kenny. Brilliant.
Frame and Reference is an Albot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.